Okay, so I kind of, in a simpler way, named this, can we buy a better world? And that's really, when we talk about procurement, we're buying, and we're asking ourselves, what's the world we actually are buying through the goods and services that we purchase? And specifically, we'll really look at the Welsh Community Benefits tool as a way to highlight this. It happens, for those of you who are new to this field, that Wales is actually a global leader in this area around how we embed social, economic, and environmental benefits in procurement. So it's very opportune that we're right here talking about it. Okay, so just to cover what we're going to cover in a very short time, what are community benefits? Is this a kind of a first time you've heard this term, or you're new to this idea of community benefits for anyone in the room? Okay, we'll go fast with that one. But we'll just talk about what that is in case you've wandered in and wondered. Next, we'll talk about how do you actually measure community benefits, because it's all nice to talk about the world, what we want to buy, but how do we actually measure it is really difficult sometimes. The third will be about how are people actually using this, and that's the biggest hurdle most of us face, that policy to practice chasm, where we have great ideas, but implementing them becomes very difficult. What's a great part of this is that Martin will actually be talking about his own experiences using it. So you won't have to hear from me, you can hear from actual contractors who are delivering on community benefits. And then last, we'll talk about some lessons for the future. So wherever you're coming from, what is coming out of 3-4 years of this experience that you can take back to your own communities and think about deploying in your own way. And I just want to start us off with a quote that I like to use from a woman named Anna LePay from the Small Planet Foundation. And what she says here is, every time you spend money, you're casting a vote for the world you want to see. That's the one act that all of us commit every day in personal and business terms, as we spend money. Even in countries where we're not allowed to vote, we spend money. And that is a choice about what we spend our money on. And if you work in procurement, you are spending money on behalf of an organization. If you work in the public sector, you're spending money on behalf of your citizens. So it's a tremendous responsibility and a tremendous opportunity to think about what is the world you're trying to buy. So on to actually some more specifics of what that might look like. To explain community benefits, I'm going to go talk about how we defined it in the Welsh Community Benefits tool. For a lot of you, you'll know it as sustainability. You might know it as corporate social responsibility. If you're in England, you'll be using the term social value now, maybe. It has a lot of names, but we'll talk about what those look like, and you can decide how it relates to your own context. We divided the community benefits into 5 areas, and we were looking specifically at how we measure community benefits in construction. So it does affect some of the things we were looking at. And the first area was on enterprise, and that was things like using Welsh businesses, using Welsh SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises, 2 really hot topics globally. And I'm sure you are experiencing that in your own areas. The second was on employment, and in this case, looking at hiring long-term unemployed people, and that's contributing to job creation. The third was resources, and we were looking at a variety of resources, including, I gave one example, diversion of waste from landfill, so how we're minimizing waste. The fourth area and the fifth area are a little more construction specific. So one was community, and that was looking at how we measure cash and in-kind contributions from the contractor. And the last was training, and this became a really big focal point within Wales. And this is looking at how we create skills and opportunities for young people in particular through apprenticeships and other forms of training. So those are just kind of a taste of how, those are the kinds of topics we were trying to measure in these contracts. Not price, not quality, but the other stuff. So that's all fine and dandy, but how do we actually measure it? So I'm going to actually show you, for those who are new, what the community benefits tool actually looks like, and real emphasis on simplicity. So for better or worse, I've actually included a screenshot of the community benefits tool, which I'm sure is hard to read for everyone, I know that. But what you'll see here is it's in Excel. It's not fancy-dancy, it's just in Excel, it's an Excel worksheet. We did that intentionally so that it could be managed and adapted by people over time, and it has been. And so it's just a set of simple questions that the contractor has entered data into. What I have a screenshot here from is a question of how much are you spending on suppliers in Wales. And then we offer guidance on here are the kinds of postcodes that are in Wales, so when you look at your spending, here's how you know if they're in Wales or not. And you just enter that data. So that's the process that contractors are using to enter data, just to give you a flavor of how it actually looks. And it's the same with all those questions. So then on to how are people actually doing this? So it's nice, we define community benefits, we've created this Excel interface to allow contractors to input it. How's that actually working? And so now I'm going to stop talking, the much promised video, 5 minutes in, and you're going to hear from a man named Clearap Griffith with Gwynedd Community Housing. It's okay, I'll do it. Oh, okay, great. Thank you. about just 2 minutes about how they've incorporated it into their program. They're a social housing company, so providing housing, public housing, and looking at how they do more than just build the housing. And they specifically focus on the enterprise component, working with local businesses, and the training component, how they build up training opportunities for young people. So we're going to see, hopefully this sounds okay.
The WHS program is a project within Cartrefi Gwynedd, or the only thing Cartrefi Gwynedd was set up in the first place. It's a standard set by Welsh Government to get all social housing calculated up to a specific standard, and houses we're working on getting all the housing stock, which is around 6,000 to the standard by March 2015. We included core and non-core social clauses in at tender stage. Core clauses relating to sort of training employment or type improvements in training and TLT, and the non-core sort of relating to what we call the wider community benefits really. On the board side was that Gwynedd being an area with historically sort of high levels of unemployment and low training levels, they decided to focus on the training and employment aspect into the core requirement. With our wider community benefit, our contractors have contributed approximately £100,000 towards community initiatives and projects within Gwynedd as well. The measurement tool was very useful. We used it at the end of the financial year, and we administered it per contractor rather than as a whole for the WHS. So what that allowed us to do was to monitor and measure how the results had improved from one year to the next. Really, most of our contractors showed some values around the Welsh local multiplier index of around £2. Which is really good. So maybe set out at the start of the contract that the value of those community measurements was part of the monitoring. I think it's easier to sort of collect the data during the year rather than sort of ask for it all at the end. Overall, the contractors have been very engaging with the data collection of all the TLT requirements. What we found is that when you sort of leave the community benefit requirements quite open-ended, it can be quite sort of problematic at times. So what we did was ask that contractors contributed towards a community investment sum, and this pot of money then was sort of used by CCG to administer any sort of community benefits that we would require really, so essentially taking the legwork away from the contractor really. And what we did with the community investment sum was set up our building experience scheme. Our WHS scheme is coming to an end. We've already sort of inputted various social clauses into our future contract, so we will hopefully be, still generate employment opportunities in the future as well.
Okay. So we. Okay. This is. We'll see what happens. Go back. Okay. So wake up now. Now the video's over. So what's really actually extraordinary about this story, though, is this is one case study. It wasn't my video. It's been created by Value Wales as part of an ongoing effort to promote uptake. And at this point,
the past 12 months, the Welsh Government, who own this building, of course, have transformed the building from its previous use as an energy centre into a new state of...
And now for something completely different. Okay. So, but what's really fascinating is this is now a tool that's been used by almost 30 different contractors on almost twice as many contracts and in multiple organizations. So it's not just it's in housing, it's also within local authorities, it's within health, regeneration, and it's spanning multiple years. And I have to tell you, as someone who's been doing this for 15 years, it's actually quite rare to see that level of penetration and longevity. And that's a testament not just to the tool, which of course is wonderful, but also the people involved and how they've done. And those people are actually here today, so you can actually ask questions about how do they get this out there and used 3-4 years on by multiple organizations and multiple contracts. And so that's the really exciting part about what's happening here. So because of that, I pulled one quote here, which I think was really great to hear from Clear about seeing improvement over those 2 years. He said there's actually been some improvement in local sourcing. And one of the important points there is that if you're really clear about what you're asking for from your contractors and you're routine about measuring it, which are two things he talked about, you can actually see improvement. And that's one of the reasons why it's actually been popular and been taken up. Okay, so last is lessons for the future. So what is this? I'll tell you, how can you use this in your own context? You don't have to use this tool, you can develop your own thing. And I just had a quote here from Nina Ripl, who's the project manager at Value Wales for this program. And what she said is part of the reason. There's a number of reasons why there's been increasing interest. One of them is that it's actually a pretty simple tool to use. I'm sure it could be even simpler, but it's actually really easy to use. And maybe that sounds really obvious to you, but if you've ever encountered measurement tools, you know that they can often be really not simple to use. So I really emphasize simplicity, and even if it's just measuring one thing and growing from there. So in terms of those lessons, and we heard all of them actually from Clear in that video, the first is to really focus on asking for data that suppliers can collect easily. And ask them, try it out, test different approaches, but if it's easy, they'll do it. And you can always get more complex over time, but start off with things that are easy. The second is to ask for data that you actually plan to use. We all think, well, wouldn't it be nice to know this? But if you can't say exactly what you're going to do with it, don't ask for it right away, because it seems like a real pointless exercise for the contractor. And the third, and you heard Clear mention this in particular, is to make measurement routine. It is so much easier if you build this into the beginning, or if you're starting midway, to start to do it on a monthly or quarterly basis, or not just once a year. If you've ever had to prepare your taxes and waited to the end of the year, you know that it's a big scramble and you're spending days trying to find stuff. If you keep it going over month on month, it becomes habit. And that's what you're trying to do, is form new habits. So these are the kind of three big takeaways from this. And honestly, from many years of doing this is often the case for any case of measurement. So I threw in a little bonus. Oh, and so, sorry, before we get a little bonus footage, I have an example of another tool I've been working on, just to show you. It's not all about, I'm not just a stooge for the Welsh government. There's other things happening. And this is, again, taking those three things to heart about how do we actually make it really, really easy and routine. And these are just some screenshots of Ripl, which is where I've ventured into the world of tech startup and using technology to make it even easier. And I don't think you can really see this here, but basically we've boiled it down to 4 metrics. 3 of them actually are in the community benefits tool, and one of which is new. We only look at now use of renewable energy, diversion of waste from landfill, gender pay equality, and use of local suppliers. So 3 of those are in the benefits tool now. Actually, gender is a new one. And that's where we're looking at measurements that are beyond construction, that everyone can collect and are really easy to collect. To give you an example, on the right-hand side is the energy tab, where the supplier simply uploads their energy documents, which for a small business is often just their bill. So literally, I have sat there and timed our small businesses to see how no one's taken more than 45 minutes to complete this for a monthly or quarterly reporting process. And that's a really important part of this, is how fast can they get it done? Because they don't have time, they have other things they're doing. And they get to a singular score, which is this composite index, the Ripl score, which allows people to compare apples to apples, which we hear a lot from people. We want to score people and compare them and compare them with each other. So just giving you a different insight on how we're looking at how we're making it easier, how we're making it routine for people, and focusing on what we can actually act on. So that is really the last bit. I have a little bonus question, because a colleague asked me, well, what if they ask you, why do we even need to care? And so I'm curious, are any of you out there wondering why you should even care about community benefits and procurement? You can raise your hand, it's okay if you do. No, okay, well, hey, I was prepared for this. I'm gonna go, I'll do this is the last slide really. And I put this there, it's from that screenshot you just saw from Risk Networks. They're a technology company. And I asked them why they were interested. And he said, it's really important to our customers. And his customers are people like IBM, Cisco, and Amazon. And so I'm not going to go with the climate change and stuff people might consider soft. This is a hardcore business decision. At some point in your business, as you grow, you're going to find customers who do care about these issues, and they're going to ask you. And if you say you don't know, it's not going to go so well. If you're here in Wales, you're probably going to encounter that a little sooner than later. So this is just a really short answer to that question, which is customers are increasingly caring, and that's how you differentiate yourself in the marketplace and win work. So a parting thought for this morning as you head off into the day is, what kind of world do you want to buy? I encourage you to think about that over the day and tell me what the answer is. Thank you.